I'm worried about Borderlands 4. Now, when I say that, I am kind of over-exaggerating just a little bit. Seeing the press from the developers, the publishers, and also the playtesters, it should be a great game. Of course, the playtesters were all paid, or at least sponsored, and you have to wonder if there's some sort of bias in that. I think they have learned from their mistakes of the previous games, but at the same time, the thought in the back of your head is still, have they? You know, like, will it be better than their predecessors? Will it have recovered from Borderlands 3 and the Tiny Tinas and this sad drop off to the pre-sequel? And I mean, it should be better than the Borderlands movie, I hope. But at the same time, I am still a little worried about what's going to be happening after it comes out. And let me preface this by saying I am a huge fan of the Borderlands. I have been playing these games since I was 8 years old on my grandfather's computer. Of course, he let me, but we kept it a secret from my mom. I was a little bit too young. And my starting game was Borderlands 2 in 2012. So I've been playing this game for 13 years now.
Damn!
That's a lot longer than I expected, I'm not gonna lie. I just did the math on that and I feel a little old. But anyway, this game is a huge part of my life. It's one of my all-time favorite game franchises, along with the Elder Scrolls. This franchise holds a special place in my heart. I played all the games, although I did not complete Tiny Tina Wonderlands, partially due to time constraints at the time and also the fact that I didn't like it. Although I don't think I'm the only one. After Borderlands 3, I know a lot of people had a bad taste in their mouth due to some of the updates that they made ruining weapons, and they have reverted that since then, but still, a lot of those weapons are unusable. You know, the Lob used to be one of the best weapons in the entire game, and I'm not gonna lie, I just tried to use the Lob earlier and it was absolute garbage, and I feel terrible about it. On level, on Mayhem 10, against Mayhem 10, it just doesn't work. Some of those weapons that were absolutely massive back then just aren't anything now. Some of the game balances that they made, some of the updates that they did kind of just ruined the game for some people at the time. But anyway, enough about that. My worries for the Borderlands 4 is due to the previous games. Of course, the pre-sequel doesn't really count, but I do want to talk about it. The fact that 2K Australia went out of business halfway through their DLC making kind of sucked. You know, you didn't really have that endgame. You didn't have the raid bosses that we did in Borderlands 2. You didn't have all that extra content. But I will say the big thing that they learned from Borderlands pre-sequel is you have to have dedicated drops. You know, you can't just have a grinder and have randomized stuff. You would need dedicated drops. That's kind of what Borderlands is known for, which they've already specified they will have in Borderlands 3. A really good quality of life thing that I heard, I think it was from Jolt's dude actually, is that dedicated drops, let's say, you know, the bunker has 3 different drops. It's a 1 in 10 to get a legendary, and then it's a 1 in 3 to get, let's say, a sham shield. It will now be a 10% chance for each. So there's a 10% chance to get a sham, there's a 10% chance to get a bitch, and then there's a 10% chance to get the head. So it's all its own system. So you can have all 3 drops at once. Of course, the bunker is not going to be in Borderlands 4, but you get my point. But that way, it's not a just terrible, terrible farm, which I think is an amazing quality of life feature that I'm really looking forward to in Borderlands 4. But of course, this part isn't what we're really worried about. What we're worried about is the story, the character progression, and also how this game is going to hold up in the future. Borderlands 3 had a quite, how do I put it, lackluster story, we'll go with, and the character progression was just as bad. Ava's character progression was just non-existent, to be honest. It wasn't there. You would have thought Maya's death would have changed Ava in some sort of way, but it just didn't. But of course, the character progression and the story, I think they have learned from their mistake. I don't think that will happen again. I know some people have said that the story and the writing is so much better in Borderlands 4, at least for the time that they've had to play it, and I want to believe them, but that was a sponsorship deal for them to play the game early, so I'm kind of at a conflict. I want to believe them, and I hope that is true, but I just don't know how much of that will be true. And also, a lot of those people only got 90 minutes to play the game. Jolt's Dude, Killer 6, Moxie, Little Gas Mask, Epic and NG, and a few more. They all got 90 minutes to play the game and then have given their opinions about it, but at the same time, they all only got 90 minutes. Like, that's not very much time to get through the game, especially when it comes to getting through the main story. You know, you're not just gonna power through the main story like that. It's not possible. But I will say that is kind of one of the worries that got settled when they did play it, and I do hope they're right. I hope they fix the story. It seems like they did, and it seems like they've done a lot better job on Borderlands 4. But the big part for me is how this game is gonna hold up in the future. How is this game going to be playable like Borderlands 2 10 years later? Well, I guess now it's 13 years now that I did that. But still, how is this game going to hold up for the next 13 years the way Borderlands 2 did? And I think that part is what I'm worried about the most. Are we going to get a game that's on par or better than Borderlands 2? Are we going to get a story and character progression and farming and bosses that are going to be replayable up to that level of Borderlands 2? Now, this being said, Borderlands 4 did release an article on their website. I will link it in the description about their Borderlands 4 endgame details, Vault Hunter mode, dedicated drops, and more. But of course, this is just their plan. Is this really going to happen? Hopefully. I really hope so, because if all of this stuff happened, dedicated drops, optimization, weekly challenges, and of course, this will eventually end like they did with Borderlands 3. After like 2 to 3 years, they stopped doing the Bloody Harvest and Valentine's thing, and they just made it playable for all time, which is actually one of the benefits of going back to playing Borderlands 3 nowadays. But the endgame looks like it's been thought through, and hopefully this whole endgame plan happens, and the endgame of Borderlands 4 becomes even better than Borderlands 2. But there's just so many other factors in this. There's updates and nerfs and buffs that are gonna happen, and it's just, I hope it stands the test of time. Because most people thought Tiny Tina's Wonderlands was gonna be a callback to Borderlands 2, that they were going to fix the problems in Borderlands 3. But for some people, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands got even worse than Borderlands 3. Similar to the pre-sequel, there was a very limited endgame. And also the lucky dice system in Wonderlands, similar to the grinder from the pre-sequel, made it hard to farm for specific items, as there was no dedicated drops. And the biggest problem with Wonderlands, for most people, and the one that I hear the most, is the problems with the writing, the problems with the main story, the cringy and childish humor, which of course Borderlands 4 already said that they're going to tone back. It's going to be a more serious game, more focused on a story, but I just hope they don't take away from the humor that made the franchise. We still want that, just not over the top. With that being said, I have high hopes for Borderlands 4. It's coming out this Friday, or since I'm on PC, it'll be noon on Thursday. So I'll be playing it Thursday night on stream, only on Twitch. If you're curious, I think it'll be a good game. I think the devs have had so much criticism from not only the games, but the movie that came out as well, that hopefully Borderlands 4 will be able to bounce back the franchise, and maybe that's wishful thinking. But I hope Borderlands 4 will pull through. Anyway, y'all have a good one. Peace!